Dr. Minji pressed her face against the observation window of the research ship Harmony's Edge. The stars looked different here, far from Earth. She had been studying alien life forms for 3 years now, but this planet looked special. Kepler 442c had water, forests, and maybe even life they had never seen before. "Minji, come look at this," called Hyun from across the biolab. He was her best friend and research partner. They had worked together since college. Hyun pointed at his computer screen where strange readings appeared. "Something big is moving. In the forest down there." Seal walked over to join them. She was the youngest member of their team, only 25 years old, but very smart. Her job was to study how different creatures behaved. "Those readings look like a large animal group," she said. "Maybe we should send down a probe first." The biolab was full of Earth animals they brought for comparison studies. In one corner, a small tiger cub named Bori played with a rubber ball. Bori was not like normal tigers. Scientists had changed his genes to make him gentle and friendly. He looked like a tiger but acted like a house cat. His orange fur had black stripes and his green eyes sparkled with intelligence. "Look at Bori," laughed Seol. "He is trying to catch his own tail again." Minji smiled as she watched the cub. Bori was her favorite. She had raised him from when he was tiny. He followed her everywhere and slept on her bed at night. Other people might be scared of a tiger, even a small one, but Bori was family to her. The ship's AI system, Arya, suddenly made a loud beeping sound. "Warning," said Arya in her calm voice. "Unknown vessel approaching. Distance, 50,000 kilometers, and closing fast." Hyun ran to the main control panel. "I see it on the scanner. It is big. Much bigger than our ship." His voice sounded worried. "And it does not look like any human ship I have ever seen." Captain Park's voice came over the ship's speakers. "All crew to stations. We have visitors, and they do not seem friendly. Dr. Minji, please secure your animals immediately." Minji's heart started beating fast. First contact with aliens was supposed to be exciting, not scary. She quickly moved around the lab, checking that all the animal cages were locked. Besides, Bori, they had rabbits, birds, a few snakes, and even some spiders for their research. The unknown ship got closer and closer. Through the main viewer, they could see it clearly now. It looked like a giant crystal scorpion made of metal and glass. Sharp points stuck out from every surface. Lights flashed in patterns they could not understand. "They are trying to communicate," said Hyun, listening to his headphones. "Arya is working on translation." The alien ship stopped right next to them. It was so big that it blocked out the stars. Suddenly, a voice came through their speakers. The words sounded harsh and angry. "Like rocks grinding together. Human vessel, you will surrender immediately. We know what you carry. Your bioweapons will not save you." Minji looked confused. "Bioweapons? We are scientists. We only have research animals." Arya's voice came back on. "Translation complete. The aliens call themselves Valthek. They appear to be from a military empire. They are demanding we give up our biological weapons." "But we do not have any weapons," said Seal. "Just our research animals." The alien voice spoke again, louder this time. "Do not lie to us, humans. Our scanners detect multiple dangerous life forms on your ship. Apex predators, death dealers. Surrender now, or we will take them by force." Captain Park's voice came over the intercom. "Dr. Minji, I think they mean your animals. Somehow they think our research specimens are weapons." Before anyone could respond, the Valtech ship shot a blue beam at their vessel. The Harmony's Edge shook hard. Emergency lights started flashing red. Arya announced that the aliens were trying to break through their hull. "They are boarding us," shouted Hyun. "Everyone stay calm." But Minji was not calm. She was thinking about Bori and all their other animals. These aliens thought the creatures were dangerous weapons. What would they do when they found a tiger cub? The sound of metal tearing came from the cargo bay. Heavy footsteps echoed through the ship's corridors. The footsteps sounded different from human ones, more like clicking and scraping. "Stay behind me," Minji told Seal. She picked up Bori, who had been scared by all the noise. The cub buried. his face in her shoulder, and made soft whimpering sounds. The biolab door slid open with a hiss. 3 creatures walked in, and they looked nothing like humans. They stood on 6 legs like insects, but their bodies were tall like people. Their skin looked like purple crystal that caught the light. Sharp spines ran down their backs, and their eyes glowed yellow in the dim light. The leader was bigger than the others. Symbols on his armor showed his high rank. He looked around the lab with his glowing eyes, taking in all the animal cages. When his gaze fell on Bori and Minji's arms, he stepped back in shock. "By the void," he said through the translator. "They carry a death striker in their arms like it is nothing. These humans are even more dangerous than our intelligence reported." "Please," said Minji, trying to keep her voice steady. "This is Bori. He is just a baby. He would not hurt anyone." The alien commander's name was Kale, according to his translator. He pointed one of his sharp arms at Bori. "That creature could kill a dozen warriors with its claws and teeth. Yet you hold it like a youngling holds a comfort toy. What kind of beings are you?" Hyun stepped forward slowly. "Commander Kale, we are peaceful researchers. These animals are not weapons, they are our friends and study subjects." "Friends?" Commander Kale's voice sounded shocked. "You make friends with predators? This is impossible. No civilized species would do such a thing." At that moment, Bori lifted his head from Minji's shoulder. He looked at the alien commander with curious, green eyes. The cub made a small sound, almost like he was saying hello. His tail moved back and forth in a friendly way. Commander Kale jumped backward so fast he bumped into one of his soldiers. "It communicates. The Death Striker tries to speak. These humans have trained apex predators to follow commands." No, said Minji quickly. "He is just being friendly. Bori likes meeting new people, look." She gently set Bori down on the floor. The cub sat down and tilted his head, studying the aliens with interest. But Commander Kale and his soldiers saw something completely different. To them, Minji had just released a deadly predator that showed no fear of armed warriors. In their culture, such behavior meant only one thing. These humans were more dangerous than any enemy they had ever faced. The situation was about to get much worse. Commander Kyle called for backup immediately. Within minutes, 6 more Valtech soldiers entered the biolab. They all carried energy weapons and wore thick armor. Their crystal-like bodies reflected the red emergency lights, making them look even more frightening. "Secure the area," ordered Kale. "Watch the humans carefully. They control apex predators without fear. They are more dangerous than we thought." Dr. Minji held up her hands to show she meant no harm. "Please, Commander, let me explain. These animals are not dangerous. They are our companions." But Kale was not listening. He was staring at the other cages around the lab. In one corner, Daiho's pet ferret named Maru was running around in circles. The small animal had bright eyes and a long, furry body. It made chittering sounds as it played. "Another predator," whispered one of the Valtech soldiers. "Look how fast it moves. It could slip through any defense." Seal tried to help. "Maru is very gentle. He likes to play and sleep. Here, let me show you." She reached toward the ferret's cage. "Stop," shouted Kale. "Do not release more creatures." His soldiers raised their weapons. In another part of the lab, Inho was taking care of his spider collection. The spiders lived in clear containers with air holes. They were not very big, but they had colorful patterns on their bodies. Inho studied how they built their webs and caught food. One of the Valtech soldiers saw the spiders and made a sound like breaking glass. In their language, it meant extreme fear. "Web spinners," he said. "The humans keep web spinners as pets. Only the most evil beings would do such a thing." Commander Kale walked closer to look at the spiders. His yellow eyes grew wide with shock. "These are venomous hunters. They build traps and wait for victims, yet this human tends them like they are precious jewels." Inho smiled, not understanding the alien's fear. "This one is my favorite," he said, pointing to a large spider with red and black markings. "Her name is Ruby. She just had babies last week." The Valtech soldiers stepped backward. To them, Inho had just announced that he was breeding deadly assassins. Their worst fears about humans were coming true. But the real shock came when they met Nari. She was in the next room checking on the ship's collection of snakes. She wore a large python wrapped around her shoulders like a living scarf. The snake's name was Jade, and she was very calm and friendly. "Hello," said Nari as the aliens entered. "Please do not be afraid. Jade is very gentle. She has never hurt anyone." Commander Kale froze completely. A human female was wearing a constrictor-like jewelry. The snake was big enough to crush bones, yet the woman acted like it was normal. "Impossible," he breathed. "She wears a bone crusher, like decoration." What kind of species befriends death itself? One of his soldiers, a younger Valthek named Nexus, was shaking with fear. "Commander, we should leave immediately. These humans are beyond our understanding. They live with creatures that would destroy our entire civilization." But Kale was a military leader. He had seen many battles and faced many enemies. He would not run from humans, no matter how strange they seemed. "We will study them," he decided. "We must understand their power before we report back to the Empire." Back in the main biolab, Bori had gotten bored sitting still. The tiger cub started exploring the room, sniffing at interesting smells. He found a ball that had rolled under a table and began batting it around with his paws. Every time Bori moved, the Valthek soldiers tensed up. They watched his every step, expecting him to attack at any moment. But the cub just wanted to play. He rolled on his back and grabbed the ball with all four paws, making happy purring sounds. "Look at its claws," whispered one soldier. "They could tear through our armor easily. Yet it plays games like a youngling." Dr. Minji sat down on the floor, near Bori. The cub immediately crawled over to her and put his head in her lap. She scratched behind his ears and he purred even louder. "We raised Bori from a baby," she explained to the aliens. "He thinks we are his family. He would protect us, but he would never hurt innocent people." Commander Kale shook his head. "You speak of protection, but this creature is a weapon of war. In our empire, such beasts are kept in the deepest prisons. Only the most dangerous criminals would dare to approach them." "But Bori is not dangerous," said Hyun. "Watch this." He pulled a treat from his pocket and called the cub's name. Bori immediately got up and walked over to Hyun, sitting politely and waiting for his reward. The Valthek soldiers could not believe what they were seeing. An apex predator was following simple commands from an unarmed human. This level of control seemed impossible. "They have mastered the Death Strikers completely," said Nexus in a frightened voice. "No wonder they travel space without fear. They carry an army of trained killers." Commander Kale began to understand something terrible. Humans were not just another species with advanced technology. They were something far more dangerous. They had the power to tame and control the most deadly creatures in the universe. He thought about his own people, the Valthek Empire. They ruled through strength and superior weapons. But what good were weapons against enemies who commanded apex predators? What good was armor against creatures that could slip through any defense? "We must contact the High Command," he told his soldiers. "The Empire needs to know what we have discovered. Humans are not just another alien race. They are the ultimate predators, disguised as peaceful explorers." As he spoke, Bori finished his treat and wandered back to Minji. The cub rubbed against her leg and made soft chirping sounds. To the humans, it was a sweet moment between friends. To the Valthek, it looked like a deadly weapon showing affection to its master. The misunderstanding was growing worse with every passing moment. Neither species realized how different their views of the same creatures could be. The Valthek saw death and danger everywhere they looked. The humans saw family and friendship. Soon this confusion would lead to a crisis that could change everything. 3 hours passed in tense silence. The Valthek soldiers stood guard while their commander tried to decide what to do. The humans were clearly dangerous, but they did not act hostile. Commander Kale had never faced such a confusing situation. Dr. Minji was getting tired of the standoff. She needed to check on all the animals and make sure they had food and water. The stress of having armed aliens in the lab was making some of the creatures nervous. "Commander Kyle," she said politely, "my animals need care. May I please feed them?" Kyle nodded slowly, but he kept his weapon ready. "Move carefully. Do not make sudden actions. Minji started with the rabbits in the corner. They were small and fluffy with long ears and twitching noses. She gave them fresh vegetables and clean water. The rabbits hopped around happily, making soft sounds. Even these peaceful creatures worried the Valtech. Fast breeding, rapid multiplication, muttered one soldier. They could overrun a planet in months. Next, Minji moved to the bird cages. Colorful parrots squawked and flapped their wings. One of them, a green parrot named Kiwi, could speak simple Korean words. "Hello, hello," said Kiwi in a cheerful voice. "Good morning, Minji." The Valtech soldiers jumped back in surprise. "It speaks the human language," gasped Nexus. "They have trained flying scouts that can communicate." Minji laughed softly. Kiwi just copies sounds he hears. He does not really understand what he is saying. But the aliens did not believe her. To them, talking animals were signs of advanced mind control. These humans had abilities beyond anything. In Valtech science, the real crisis began when Minji approached Bori's play area. The tiger cub had been napping, but he woke up when he heard her footsteps. He stretched and yawned, showing his small white teeth. Young soldier Nexus was standing closest to the cub. He had been getting more nervous every hour. When Bori stood up and started walking toward Minji, Nexus finally lost his courage. "It's moving," he shouted. "The Death Striker approaches. It will tear you apart." Nexus raised his energy weapon and pointed it at Bori. His hands were shaking with fear. The other soldiers turned to look, ready to fire at any sign of attack, but Bori was not attacking anyone. The cub had seen a bright red ball rolling near Nexus's feet. He thought it looked fun to play with. Bori sat down and batted at the ball with one paw, making it roll in circles. "Do not move," Nexus screamed at Minji. "The creature will kill us all." Dr. Minji stayed very calm. She could see that Nexus was terrified and might shoot. If that happened, everything would go wrong. She needed to show the aliens that Bori was harmless. "Watch carefully," she said in a quiet voice. She knelt down near Bori and held out her hand. The cub immediately rubbed his head against her palm and began purring. The sound of purring filled the silent room. It was a deep, happy rumble that meant Bori felt safe and content. To humans, purring was one of the most peaceful sounds in the world. But Nexus had never heard purring before. To his ears, it sounded like a low growl, or the rumble before an earthquake. He thought the creature was preparing to attack. "It makes the death sound," he cried. "Everyone take cover." Instead of running away, Bori did something that changed everything. The cub looked up at Nexus with curious green eyes. He tilted his head to one side, the way young animals do when they meet someone new. Then Bori did the most innocent thing in the world. He began wagging his tail. The movement was slow and friendly, like a dog greeting a beloved owner. Bori's tail swished back and forth as he studied the strange crystal creature in front of him. Nexus stared in complete shock. This deadly predator was greeting him? The tail movement looked almost playful. How was this possible? Minji saw her chance to help. "Bori likes you," she said softly. "When his tail moves like that, it means he wants to be friends." The cub took a small step toward Nexus, still wagging his tail. He made a soft chirping sound, the same noise he made when he wanted attention from humans. "Stay back," Nexus warned, but his voice sounded less frightened now. He was confused instead of terrified. Bori sat down right in front of the alien soldier. The cub looked up at Nexus's crystal face and made the chirping sound again. Then he did something completely unexpected. The tiger cub gently rubbed his head against Nexus's armored leg. It was the same thing house cats do when they want affection. Bori was marking Nexus as a friend, the way cats mark their favorite humans. The cub's purring got louder and happier. Nexus stood frozen like a statue. This apex predator was showing him affection. The creature that should be ripping him apart was instead treating him like family. "Commander," he whispered. "I do not understand. The Death Striker acts like a pet," finished Commander Kale in a stunned voice. Dr. Minji smiled. "That is exactly what he is. Bori is our pet, Our family member, our friend. He has never hurt anyone in his whole life." She reached over and gently scratched Bori behind the ears. The cub closed his eyes and purred even louder. He was completely relaxed and happy, surrounded by friends both old and new. "This cannot be real," said Nexus, but he did not move away. Part of him was still terrified, but another part was fascinated. The creature's purring was actually quite soothing. Slowly, very carefully, Nexus reached down with one crystal hand. He barely touched the top of Bori's head. The cub's fur was soft and warm. Bori opened his eyes and looked up at Nexus, then rubbed his head against the alien's hand. At that moment, everything the Valthek believed about humans began to change. The breakthrough with Nexus and Bori changed the atmosphere in the biolab. Other Valthek soldiers began to relax slightly, though they still watched the humans carefully. Commander Kale studied the interaction between his youngest soldier and the tiger cub with growing amazement. "Nexus," he said slowly. "How do you feel? Are you in pain? Poisoned?" The young soldier looked surprised. "No, Commander, I feel strange, but not bad. The creature's vibrations are actually pleasant, and its fur is softer than I expected." Dr. Minji seized the moment to educate the aliens. "Commander Kale, may I show you something important? I want to explain how humans live with animals." Kyle nodded cautiously. "Proceed, but carefully." Minji walked over to a wall screen and activated a video display. Images of Earth appeared, showing cities where humans and animals lived together. There were parks full of dogs playing with children, cats sleeping in sunny windows, and horses working alongside farmers. "This is our homeworld," Minji explained. "For thousands of years, humans have shared our lives with animals. We help each other survive and grow." The Valthek soldiers watched in amazement. The video showed humans riding on the backs of large creatures called horses. Children played games with four-legged animals that ran and jumped. Elderly humans sat peacefully while furry creatures slept in their laps. "You do not fight them?" asked one soldier. "Sometimes we disagree," said Hyun, with a smile. "But mostly we work together. Animals help us hunt, guard our homes, and keep us company. We give them food, shelter, and medical care." Commander Kyle was beginning to see a different picture of humanity. "You form partnerships with other species?" "More than partnerships," said Seol. "We form families. Many humans love their animal companions as much as their own children." As if to prove her point, Bori left Nexus and walked back to Minji. The cub climbed up onto her lap and settled down for a nap. His purring filled the room with peaceful sound. "Bori chose me when he was very small," Minji said, stroking his fur. "His real mother died, so I became his mother. He trusts me completely, and I would do anything to protect him." This concept amazed the Valthek. In their culture, different species were either enemies or slaves. The idea of chosen family across species lines was revolutionary, but their philosophical discussion was interrupted by Arya's urgent voice. "Warning. Large space creature approaching. Distance, 10,000 kilometers. It appears hostile." Everyone rushed to the observation windows. Outside in the dark space, something enormous was moving toward them. It looked like a giant jellyfish made of stars, with long tentacles that sparked with electricity. "Space Kraken," breathed Commander Kale. "I have heard stories, but never seen one. They are attracted to ship engines and feed on energy." The creature was bigger than both ships combined. Its tentacles reached out like searching fingers, and its body pulsed with strange lights. "Our weapons cannot penetrate its bioelectric field," said Kale grimly, "and it is too large to outrun. We are trapped." Captain Park's voice came over the intercom. "All hands, prepare for possible attack. The creature is moving directly toward us." The space kraken's tentacles touched the hull of the Harmony's Edge. Immediately, the ship's lights began to flicker. The creature was draining their power. "It will consume both our vessels," said Kale, "unless we can find its weak point." That was when something unexpected happened. All the animals in the biolab began acting strangely. The birds started calling out in alarm. The rabbits huddled together in their cage. Even the spiders in their containers moved in agitated patterns. But Bori's reaction was the most dramatic. The tiger cub suddenly stood up, his fur standing on end. He looked toward the window and made a low sound that was part growl, part warning call. "What is wrong with him?" asked Nexus, who had grown fond of the cub. Dr. Minji watched Bori carefully. He senses something. Animals often know things that humans miss. Their senses are much sharper than ours. Bori walked to the window and stared out at the space kraken. His enhanced intelligence, created by human genetic therapy, was working on a level that surprised everyone. The cub was studying the creature's movement patterns. Suddenly, Bori turned back to Minji and began making a series of sounds. They were not random animal noises. The sounds followed a pattern, almost like he was trying to communicate something specific. "Aria," called Minji. "Can you analyze Bori's vocalizations?" The AI worked quickly. The patterns suggest spatial relationships. The subject appears to be indicating specific locations on the space creature. Hyun looked excited. "Bori is trying to tell us something about the Kraken. Maybe he can see its weak points." Working together, the humans and Aria translated Bori's communications. The cub was pointing out that the space kraken had a vulnerable spot where its main body connected to its tentacles. The creature protected this area carefully, but there were moments when it was exposed. "If we can coordinate our attack on that spot," said Commander Kale, "we might be able to drive it away." But the plan required perfect timing. The weak point was only exposed for seconds at a time, and both ships would need to fire together. "Our animals can help," suggested Seol. "They are reacting to the creature's bioelectric field. They can warn us when it is about to expose its weak spot." Commander Kale made a decision that would change Valthek-human relations forever. "We will trust your creatures," he said. "If they can help us survive, then perhaps we have been wrong about many things." The battle plan was unlike anything either species had ever attempted. Humans and Valthek worked side by side, using Earth animals as early warning systems. Bori sat next to Nexus, both of them watching the space kraken carefully. When the moment came, every animal in the lab reacted at once. Bori made his warning sound, the birds called out, and even the spiders moved in their containers. "Now," shouted Minji. Both ships fired their weapons at the exact same moment, hitting the kraken's vulnerable spot perfectly. The creature recoiled in pain and surprise, its tentacles releasing their ships. With a flash of angry light, it disappeared into deep space. As the emergency passed, humans and Valthek looked at each other with new respect. They had survived by working together, guided by the wisdom of creatures both species had misunderstood. "Your animals saved us all," said Commander Kale quietly. "Our animals," corrected Dr. Minji with a smile. "We are all in this together now." 6 months after the Space Kraken incident, the galaxy looked very different. The first joint human Valthek research station orbited a peaceful planet called Haven. Ships from both species came and went regularly, carrying scientists, diplomats, and curious visitors. Dr. Minji stood in the station's main observation deck, watching a group of young Valthek students learn to interact with Earth animals. The scene would have been impossible to imagine just months ago. Bori, now grown into a magnificent adult tiger, lay peacefully in the center of the room. 3 Valthek younglings sat around him, carefully practicing the gentle touching techniques that Nexus had taught them. The tiger's purring created a soothing background sound that helped everyone stay calm. "Remember," said Nexus, who had become the first Valthek animal specialist. "Approach slowly and let him smell you first. Bori will tell you if he wants to be friends." One brave young Valthek named Zira reached out to touch Bori's fur. The tiger opened one green eye, studied the alien child, then rubbed his massive head against her crystal hand. Zira made a sound of pure joy. "He likes me," she exclaimed. "The great striped one accepts me as pack friend." Commander Kyle, now Ambassador Kyle, watched from nearby. His attitude toward humans and their animals had changed completely. 6 months ago I would have called this scene impossible, he told Minji. Now I see it as the future. The transformation had not been easy. Many Valtech still feared Earth creatures, and some humans doubted whether the crystal-bodied aliens could be trusted. But the success stories were growing every day. Hyun had established an interspecies communication program, teaching both humans and Valtech how to understand animal behavior. Seol was working on a project to introduce carefully selected Earth animals to Valtech worlds. Even in-house spiders had found acceptance among a group of Valtech engineers who admired their web-building skills. The Galactic Council has approved our proposal, announced Ambassador Kale. The coexistence protocol will become official policy next month. The protocol was a revolutionary document that established humans as official mediators for interspecies conflicts. Other alien races had heard about humanity's unique ability to form bonds across species lines, and they wanted to learn these skills. Captain Park, now promoted to Admiral, joined them on the observation deck. "We have received requests from 12 different species," she reported. "Everyone wants to understand how we work with animals. Some want to try it themselves." The most dramatic change was in Nexus. The young Valtech had become Bori's constant companion and had learned to communicate with the tiger through a combination of sounds, gestures, and touch. Their friendship had become famous throughout both civilizations. "Nexus treats Bori like a brother," observed Seol. "It proves that friendship can grow between any two beings, no matter how different they seem." As they watched, Bori stood up and walked over to a group of nervous adult Valtech who were visiting the station for the first time. The great tiger sat down in front of them and began his slow, friendly tail wag. One by one, the visitors relaxed and smiled. "He is teaching them," said Minji with wonder in her voice. "Bori understands that some people are afraid, so he shows them there is nothing to fear." Dr. Nari entered the observation deck with exciting news. "The first Valtech human family has adopted an Earth animal," she announced. "A crystal smith named Corvex and his human partner Sarah have taken in a cat named Luna." This was the breakthrough everyone had hoped for. Mixed families were forming naturally, bringing together the best qualities of both species. Human empathy, combined with Valtech logic, was creating solutions to problems neither group could solve alone. Ambassador Kale looked thoughtful. "When we first met, we saw your animals as weapons of war. We could not imagine that creatures so powerful could choose to be gentle. And we did not understand how frightening we must have seemed," admitted Minji. "To you, we looked like we had tamed death itself." "Perhaps we both did," said Kale, with what might have been a smile. "You tamed the wild nature of predators. We tamed our fear of the unknown. Together we are taming the galaxy's tendency toward conflict." The station's communication system activated. Arya's voice filled the room. "Incoming message from the Centauri Federation. They report successful resolution of their territorial dispute using human mediation techniques. Both sides credit animal-assisted therapy for the breakthrough. More good news arrived every day. Planets that had been at war for centuries were finding peace through human-taught cooperation methods. Species that had never been able to communicate were learning to understand each other with help from Earth animals." As the day ended, Minji found herself alone with Bori in her quarters. The great tiger had claimed his favorite spot on her bed, just like when he was a cub. His purring was deeper now, but just as comforting. "You started something amazing," she told him, scratching behind his ears. "Who would have thought that a scared little cub could change the galaxy?" Bori opened his green eyes and looked at her with obvious affection. Then he did something he had learned from watching human families. He gently licked her hand, the way tigers show love to their closest companions. Outside the window, ships from dozens of different species moved peacefully through space. In the distance, Haven's sun was setting, painting the sky in brilliant colors. The first interspecies colony was taking shape on the planet's surface, where humans, Valtech, and other aliens were building a new kind of civilization together. The future looked bright, and it all started with a simple misunderstanding about a tiger cub who just wanted to make friends. Dr. Minji smiled as she remembered Ambassador Kale's first terrified words. It will tear you apart." Instead, Bori had brought everyone together. The galaxy's most feared predator had become its greatest teacher of peace. Sometimes the best friendships begin with the biggest misunderstandings, and sometimes, when someone wags their tail, it changes everything.